Tonight, machete-wielding thieves stalking the streets in Melbourne's west, breaking into a home as a family slept. Mystery over what caused a house to explode. Emergency crews clinging to hope in a desperate search for a woman missing in the rubble. Rising tension over the suburban rail loop. The Premier responds to speculation she's at odds with her deputy. New laws with the threat of jail time aimed at keyboard warriors creating damaging deepfakes. The Defence Minister confronts China over dangerous decisions in the Pacific. And the Demons demolished by the Dockers, their worst ever loss under Simon Goodwin.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Mike Amor starts now.
Good evening. A family in Melbourne's northwest has been left traumatised by thieves armed with machetes, robbing them as they slept. The gang have been stalking the streets, entering the home through a laundry door, stealing a luxury car, house keys, jewellery and a laptop.
Stalking a family home, weapons in hand, inside the house, a husband and wife with their 2 young boys, about to be robbed.
After realising that what they had in their arms and what their intention was, we were terrified actually. It's nothing less than terror.
The family car stolen along with house keys, a laptop, a smartwatch and precious jewellery, but that's not what worries Hina Darby and her family most.
Anybody could have got hurt, really bad actually. We could have ended up in hospital or, our children could have lost their parents.
A terrifying confrontation with the intruders and their blades was avoided as they entered through the laundry door and raided the ground floor. The family slept upstairs.
It was a blessing in disguise, or somebody watching over us, or maybe our kids' love that didn't let us wake up.
Police recovered the car later in the morning, more than half an hour away in Layla. They're still hunting for the burglars who also tried their luck at other homes where locked doors turned them away. Even with security cameras at Hina's house, as well as those surrounding it, the armed thieves weren't put off. The family thinks there needs to be tougher laws when it comes to weapon controls, as well as harsher penalties.
We can provide all education and everything, but they have to face the consequences that what they have done.
This family left traumatised and concerned the next victims might be physically hurt as well. Rory Campbell, 7 News.
The family of a restaurant worker missing in the rubble of a Sydney townhouse is keeping vigil tonight, 30 hours after an apparent gas explosion caused the home to crumble. Rescuers say it's feasible she survived the blast, but admit it would be a miracle to find her alive.
The rain had cleared, but first light was not kind to the mother of Jasmine May. She had not slept.
She broke out crying a couple of times, but then she kept saying, "My daughter's strong, my daughter's strong, my daughter's strong."
Jasmine was the only person unaccounted for after yesterday's explosion. 7 News understands she had been in a room directly underneath these concrete slabs. Miracles do happen, one source told 7 News, but it would take a miracle.
Every time I close my eyes, I see it. I hear the boom, loud noises.
In driving rain, emergency services worked through a floodlit night, piece by piece. An entire government housing unit levelled by what is thought to have been, but not confirmed as, a gas explosion. There had been signs of life late yesterday, tapping noises from the rubble, but they stopped.
There's the job of the rescuers to work their way through that and try and find spaces in that collapse area.
The building exploded around 1 p.m. yesterday. 2 hours later, Jasmine was meant to start work as a shift supervisor at Volcano's Steakhouse, Wetherill Park.
This is the all-time favourite, so we have the tomahawk.
Detectives called to see if she was there. She had not turned up.
It's pretty raw, and I feel really sorry for the people that have had this happen to them.
That includes those who no longer have a home, gathering belongings today.
It was the house.
Gone.
It's gone. Just in shock, walking around the street with no shoes on, no phones.
Also those who the blast injured, including Andrew's grandparents.
Physically he's okay, but mentally he's not unstable. He's really unstable. I think there was always a gas smell sort of thing, like a leak, like sort of thing.
We heard that from multiple residents here today. The smell of gas yesterday morning and even stretching back years. No forensic link just yet, but obviously a high priority for investigators. a government building in the Deputy Premier's electorate too.
Smelling gas for some time. The Housing Minister is investigating that promptly, urgently.
The search for Jasmine May continues tonight as meticulously as the search for clues as to how this happened.
At this stage, I'm still got hope.
Well, Mike, you can see here the police rescue truck is behind me. Plenty of police and fire rescue down the street too. And this will continue, I'm told, throughout the night until the point at which it ceases to become safe or until they potentially get a result, whether that is good or bad. I was told just a short time ago that this remains a rescue mission at the moment, but people here are being realistic, that they haven't heard any taps from beneath that concrete for quite some time now, and they are braced for this potentially to become recovery. They have invoked the episode of Stuart Diver in the 90s as well, who survived the Thredbo landslide for nearly a week. So they say that certainly hope remains there, although it is dwindling.
Robert Avadia in Sydney, thank you. Pro-Palestine protesters have shut down the intersection of Flinders and Swanston Street in the city. The group set up a replica medic tent and dumped a mound of dirt strewn with fake bodies across the tram tracks around 3 this afternoon. Protesters also let off flares and laid down in the middle of the road. Police have charged the truck driver. One of the government's flagship projects is facing an uphill battle from within Jacinta Allen's own cabinet. The Premier is pushing ahead with the suburban rail loop despite growing opposition from her colleagues.
A milestone on a signature project, level crossing number 80 gone, plus 2 new Pakenham stations.
Thank you for your work. This is awesome.
But another signature project faces revolt from within. The Herald Sun reporting Deputy Premier Ben Carroll is turning against suburban rail loop, instead favouring airport rail in his electorate.
So are you at odds with your deputy over the suburban rail loop?
No, I know from conversations with my colleagues that we are all share that singular focus of getting on and delivering the projects that the Victorian community voted for.
Ben Carroll was unavailable today.
If the Deputy Premier doesn't support suburban rail, then how can any other Victorian be expected to support the suburban rail loop project?
MPs in Melbourne's north and west are said to be slightly concerned by pushing ahead with SRL at the expense of projects in their respective patches.
2025 is going to be a big year for transport infrastructure in the west, with the opening of both the Metro Tunnel and the Westgate Tunnel.
The $34 billion project is only partly funded. The state government insists tunnelling on it will start within 2 years.
The Allen Labor government's vision is effectively tunnel vision, the suburban rail loop. It's putting all of our eggs into one basket.
Another 30 level crossings will go in the next 6 years. The Premier hopes sentiment around this project lasts.
People said it couldn't be done. People didn't believe us. People were heavily critical of that commitment. Well, here we are.
Blake Johnson, 7 News.
There's a desperate search tonight to find a missing Frankston man. 54-year-old Ronan Clark was last seen leaving Frankston Hospital on Tuesday afternoon. He's described as having long dark hair, tattoos on his legs and chest, and is believed to be barefoot. Ronan's family says he suffers from an acquired brain injury and epilepsy and requires regular medication. They say he was discharged from hospital, but when no one was able to pick him up, he left on his own but hasn't made contact with his family. It will soon be illegal to use artificial intelligence to create fake sexually explicit images with the likeness of real people. The images, referred to as deep fakes, could see those charged face up to 6 years behind bars. Attorney General Mark Dreyfus will introduce the legislation to federal parliament on Wednesday. Fresh protests have broken out in Israel, with citizens taking to the streets to implore Benjamin Netanyahu and Hamas to broker a peace deal in Gaza. The UK and France are both backing a new American proposal.
Months of frustration reaching boiling point in Tel Aviv. Israelis supporting the US president in his push for peace, met by security forces. The protesters angry at Benjamin Netanyahu.
Save the hostages. For God's sake, someone Someone has to do it.
A day after the US president pushed a new ceasefire plan,
Any response to Bibi, Mr. President?
Joe Biden was out cycling. The Israeli Prime Minister was standing firm. Israel's conditions for ending the war have not changed, he said. The destruction of Hamas, the freeing of hostages. Allies are urging the Israeli Prime Minister to negotiate and accept Hamas will survive.
The crucial thing now is that Hamas must accept this deal, and the world should be looking at Hamas and saying, look, you have the ability to bring this suffering, to bring this loss of life, to bring this terrible devastation to an end.
Emmanuel Macron posting in French, English, Arabic and Hebrew, the war in Gaza must end. We support the US proposal for a durable peace. Experts, though, are warning world leaders to tread carefully.
When you're involved in sensitive negotiations, usually it's so important that these are done outside the public glare, that the negotiators have space and time to really tease out the issues.
Israel isn't backing down. 2 men killed in a suspected Israeli shelling attack near Rafah. Their bodies carried away on a donkey cart. In London, Hugh Whitfield, 7 News.
The Defence Minister has confronted China over dangerous decisions in the Pacific. Richard Marles is warning Australia will not tolerate military harassment in international waters, as a new poll reveals the majority of us fear China is a growing security threat.
In Singapore with his Chinese defence counterpart Don Jun.
Shake hands, please.
Richard Marles.
There are still issues that we need to talk through.
With the unenviable task of standing up to China while keeping our biggest trading partner happy.
It was a very frank conversation. We raised a lot of things,
including unsafe and unprofessional conduct by the Chinese military, a jet detonating flares towards an Australian Navy helicopter, Navy divers also injured in a sonar attack.
Richard Marles has finally done, weeks later, the absolute bare minimum.
I'm not going to go into his response. I mean, that was a matter that we spoke about privately.
A new poll revealing 53% of Australians see China as more of a security threat than an economic partner. 2/3 worry it will be a military threat within 20 years. Just 17% trust China to act responsibly.
Definitely a threat. They have more people in their army than what we've got in Australia.
The Defence Minister conceded there have been other tense interactions with the Chinese military, but said they didn't meet the threshold to be made public. As China continues to relax Australian trade bans, a decision worth $3 billion since import restrictions started to lift.
You could definitely see them by the end of calendar 24 taking over Japan again as our single biggest destination for beef.
Isabel Mullen, 7 News.
A Woolworths Metro in Melbourne southeast has been targeted in an attempted ram raid. Just after 2:30 this morning, a car rammed the Caulfield North shop. The wannabe thieves broke a window but fled before they had a chance to steal anything. No one was inside at the time. Police are now searching for the offenders. There's been a tragic end for a woman who once made headlines around the world. The body of 40-year-old Natasha Ryan, known as the girl in the cupboard, was discovered by Queensland Police this morning.
A frantic all-night search of Rockhampton after Natasha's husband, Scott Black, reported her missing around 9:30 last night. At first light on a golf course, police made the grisly discovery of Natasha's body. Her story made headlines around the world in 1998 when Natasha disappeared as a 14-year-old from outside a Rockhampton cinema. Her family feared the worst.
I want to know where my daughter is.
To know that your daughter's out there and the possibility that that could be your daughter.
In 2001, serial killer Leonard Fraser was charged with Natasha's kidnap, rape and murder.
I think I can't cry anymore. I think that I'm numb.
But sensationally, during Fraser's murder trial, police raided the home of Natasha's then-boyfriend, Scott Black. He was 21 when he started dating the 14-year-old. Police found her alive and well, hiding in one of his cupboards. Natasha and her boyfriend, Scott Black, were both charged over their ruse. The couple went on to get married and tried to resume a quiet and private life in Rockhampton. Natasha studied and became a nurse, but she had her own ongoing mental health battles in and out of hospital trying to manage her demons. Now her family forced to grieve her loss all over again. Steve Hart, 7 News.
And if you or someone you know needs to talk, Lifeline is available 24/7. Their number is 131114. Controversial Richmond star Marlon Pickett is facing new AFL scrutiny tonight. Laura Spurway is at AFL House and he's in hot water over an interaction with the crowd, Laura.
He is, Mike. It all unfolded in the final quarter of last night's game against Geelong. Marlon Pickett was subbed off with a calf injury, and as he approached the bench, he's flipped the bird at the Geelong crowd. We spoke to the 32-year-old when he went for a calf scan today. He says it was the disrespectful fans that provoked him, but Richmond coach Adam Uze was not very impressed when he found out about the incident.
As players, we cop a lot of stuff from defence line, and it's just emotions at the end of the day. Like, if we can't show emotions, then we're just going to cop whatever the crowd says. Hurt my calf, then there's some emotions coming with the birds.
If he has, that would be disappointing. I'd have a chat for sure, so you can't be doing that.
Now, the AFL will issue Marlon Pickett with a please explain tomorrow before deciding on any sanction, if any. It's likely to be a fine. In the meantime, he is still embroiled in criminal charges in WA relating to an alleged spate of commercial burglaries. Those proceedings are ongoing, Mike.
Laura, thank you. Olympian Sally Pearson has been announced as the next star to take the icy plunge at this year's Big Freeze.
I think I'm more nervous doing this than I was at the start line of the Olympics. What Neil's done for this horrible disease is really quite inspiring. If he can do that for everybody else who's going to be going through this horrible disease, then sliding down a slide into a bucket of ice isn't so bad.
Good luck, Sally. Footy stars Jaden Stevenson and Dylan Moore also headed down a DIY slide today in Emerald, helping raise over $100,000 for MND research. The Big Freeze will return to the G on Monday, June 10. Abbey Gelmi is here now, and Abbey, the hot favourite for the rising star, is set to be suspended.
Well, Mark, it'll be a costly blow for Harley Reid in more ways than one. Chief football reporter Mitch Cleary is live with the details. And Mitch, the Eagles youngster will be paying the price.
Well, Abbey, all signs point to a two-match ban for a dangerous tackle, but the findings tonight are taking longer than expected, which is adding intrigue. It's set to be graded as careless, high contact and high impact. Any suspension would see Reid ineligible for the Rising Star and cost him a contract bonus of $20,000. Now, with Sam Darcy also suspended this weekend, it's going to see the race for the award blown wide open and spark questions over whether a suspension should cost a player the Rising Star.
It's a tackle gone wrong. We want to get the sling tackle out of the game, but it is a football act, and I think those sort of football acts a little bit gone wrong shouldn't cost either of those guys the Rising Star.
We'll have more on the new contenders shortly in sport, while early suggestions show that Hawthorn's Chankworth Jath will escape a suspension for his headbutt in the win over the Crows. We'll have more and plenty of other incidents out of the weekend in sport. Abby?
Thank you, Mitch. We'll hear from you again soon. Also ahead, the Demons demolished in the Red Centre, with their premiership credentials copping a massive hit. A cruel blow for a rising Tiger as Richmond's injury curse deepens. The new #1 fan in Alex de Minaur's corner at the French Open. It's absolutely gorgeous. And the Bombers are being challenged on the Gold Coast. That's all coming up on a big day in sport.
OK, thanks, Ab. See you soon. A little-known rule is causing a parking nightmare in Melbourne's suburbs. That's straight ahead on 7 News. Also, see the moment, would-be thieves raid a warehouse trying to steal a charity raffle prize. A man struck by a car outside a night spot in Melbourne's north. Later, the man on a mission to run from the Opera House to the MCG in record time.
And stay rugged up. This week is going to feel like Groundhog Day. The full chilly forecast coming up later on 7 News.
A pedestrian has been seriously injured during a hit run outside a Thomastown night spot. The 36-year-old from Hampton Park was struck by a car near Q Room on Settlement Road around 11:15 last night. The car, believed to be a light blue Toyota Camry sedan, didn't stop. A 22-year-old man from Epping surrendered at a police station this morning but is yet to be interviewed. The victim is in Royal Melbourne Hospital in a stable condition. A parking nightmare in an inner suburban street has exposed an obscure statewide rule. If there are no signs with restrictions, people are free to park their caravans or boats on the street, even if they live nowhere nearby.
Some locals have long called this Caravan Street. They say lately it's getting worse.
in the last 12 months it's gone nuts because it's all free parking, so people are parking their caravans here over winter.
More than 24 caravans and trailers are often parked in Alexandra Street, bordering St Kilda Cemetery.
None of them live locally. I suppose they don't want to park outside their own home. They don't want to clutter their own street, so they're filling up ours.
Shift workers complain they return home late to find there's nowhere to park. Council candidate Justin Halliday says it's led to other problems.
It's become a magnet for dumped rubbish and dumped trailers and crime. We're seeing a lot of crime in the adjacent streets where people are having their number plates stolen and things stolen out of their cars.
Fights that are broken out, people living in their caravans and then drunken brawls outside the caravans.
Residents have petitioned Port Phillip Council calling for the zone to have a 4-hour limit during the day.
Across Victoria, the same rules apply for parking a caravan or boat. If there are no restrictions and the vehicle is under 7.5 metres long and weighs less than 4.5 tonnes, then it can be parked in the street.
The Mayor says councillors have heard residents' concerns. They'll vote on a motion to investigate the matter this week. Emma O'Sullivan, 7 News.
Donald Trump has received a standing ovation at the UFC in New Jersey, proving his criminal conviction hasn't affected his support among some crowds.
The round of applause he's getting right now is pretty staggering, and you had to imagine that's what was going to happen.
But a new poll has found 10% of registered Republican voters are less likely to vote for Trump in November following his hush money conviction. Thousands of protesters have descended on central London to take part in a nationalist rally. More than 2,000 police officers were deployed to Parliament Square. Protesters say they want changes to Britain's immigration policy. Around 300 counter-protesters were separated from the march by a police cordon. It comes a day after 6 people were stabbed at an anti-Islam rally in Germany. A bungled robbery has been captured on CCTV showing one thief reversing into an accomplice with an ex-military vehicle. They'd expected to drive away in 2 luxury cars, but instead left bloodied, bruised and empty-handed.
They had the gear, but no idea. Moments earlier, the trio break into a Coopers Plains warehouse with a plot to steal 2 cars. But once inside, the masked thieves couldn't hide their surprise. An armoured personnel carrier, a 12-tonne problem. They search for the keys, creating a mess in the process. Even locking themselves out of the garage twice before finally climbing into the APC. Composed, one begins to angle grind a metal bollard blocking the exit, while the other tries to figure out how to operate the ex-military vehicle. Then, a lack of communication creates a moment of impact. Panic sets in for the driver as he hears screams of pain. But he doesn't help, instead fleeing the scene, leaving his injured accomplice to crawl out. Today, the car's owner found the funny side.
Yeah, it looks like something out of Benny Hill.
The reason why there's an armoured personnel carrier parked here is because the business is using it as a prize in a raffle for charity.
We're raising money for a wheelchair foundation, and it looks like the guy's going to need himself one soon.
Police are still searching for the trio. Sam Payne, 7 News.
Britney Higgins has posted a series of photos online of her wedding to David Shiraz. Miss Higgins tied the knot on the Gold Coast wearing a gown by Australian designer Paolo Sebastian. She captioned the post, "I married my best friend." The pair met in 2020 while working in Parliament House. Victorian doctors are facing a dramatic winter surge in COVID, cold and flu cases. The latest health advice next on 7 News. Also, a new car seat warning for parents. A spectacular start to D-Day commemorations 80 years on. And the Bluey factor, how an animated pooch is being used to attract tourists from around the world. Medical experts are sounding the alarm over a dangerous winter triple threat. A surge of RSV, COVID and influenza cases has put our health system on high alert, though it's expected the worst is yet to come.
At just 4 weeks old, Rebel Savage was hospitalised with RSV. What started as a cough quickly led to pneumonia and a collapsed lung.
I can't explain how quickly things and drastically they got worse. She was so little and I guess you could just say like lifeless.
Now left with lasting symptoms.
Now going to have scar tissue on her lungs. They're expecting her probably to end up with asthma.
So far, almost 15,000 cases of the deadly virus have been reported in Victoria. Despite that, there is no statewide immunisation program.
It presents like any other cold virus with fever, cough, runny nose, but it moves into the chest and causes rapid breathing.
Health experts are warning of a respiratory illness triple threat this winter. There are 361 COVID-19 patients in hospital, while flu cases have spiked 65% in the past fortnight. A new strain of COVID-19 has Victorian hospitals on high alert. In the past week, they've escalated their COVID response to stage 2, which includes stricter PPE for staff and visitors, as well as limiting face-to-face appointments.
It's important to get tested if you've got those viral symptoms. And of course, vaccinations is really key.
Ainsley Kosh, 7 News.
Troubled aircraft maker Boeing has suffered yet another setback in its plan to take astronauts to space. The Starliner capsule remains on Earth tonight after NASA called off its first ever mission in the final stages of the countdown.
Boeing and NASA had both invested billions to see this. Astronauts.
You have permission to launch. Proceeding with the count.
Strapped into the aircraft maker's space capsule Starliner on top of an Atlas V rocket at Cape Canaveral.
Starliner standing by.
Boeing at last about to ferry people through space as the chief astronaut praises America.
We are one nation. Under God, indivisible. We are ready to put some fire in this rocket.
But right as the launch looked locked in...
Hold. Clock stopped at T-minus 3 minutes, 50 seconds.
Of 3 computers making final launch checks...
2 came up normally, the third one came up, but it was slow to come up, and that tripped a red line that created an automatic hold.
Boeing's moment in the stars was scheduled for last month. An earlier launch also scrapped. Another launch attempt is set for mid this week. All this 4 years after competitor SpaceX achieved the same milestone. It now dominant as Boeing plays catch-up in the business of taking astronauts to and from the International Space Station.
This is the business that we're in. Everything's got to work perfectly.
It didn't, but might soon. For the troubled aircraft giant, a milestone that can't come soon enough. In the United States, Tim Lester, 7 News.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi looks set to hold on to power, with exit polls forecasting a victory for his National Democratic Alliance in the country's election. Modi is not waiting for the final count, already claiming victory on social media in what will be his 3rd term as leader. Voters faced an oppressive heatwave as they went to the polls, with at least 85 people dead nationwide. Fireworks have been let off above Normandy Beach at the start of commemorations for the 80th anniversary of D-Day. World War II veterans from around the globe are travelling to France for memorial services on June 6. Almost 160,000 Allied troops stormed the beach, which began the liberation of Western Europe from Nazi Germany. A new warning has been issued to parents about transitioning young children out of car booster seats too soon. Fresh research has found drivers are unaware of a simple test that can save young lives.
For children like Darcy Owen, graduating to an adult seat is a rite of passage. By law, young passengers can move from their boosters from the age of 7, but many aren't ready.
If a child is graduated into the vehicle's seatbelt prematurely and the seatbelt does not fit them correctly, then they're at a higher risk of injury in a crash.
This is what happens. Children can slip, slide and get thrown around, the belt constricting around a little passenger's neck.
Restraints are absolutely essential to prevent the risk of serious injury or fatality in a crash.
Most parents graduate children from boosters based on their size, with only a minority aware of the 5-step safety test used to evaluate seatbelt fit.
So the 5-step test covers 5 different key points that we want parents to check in every vehicle that they use.
Children need a straight back with bent knees, the belt sitting low across their hips and up past the mid-shoulder. Maintaining that position is essential.
We found that parents that received the 5-step test, 44% of them were able to make a correct decision on the seatbelt fit, and that was compared to only 28% of parents that used the minimum legal requirements.
It's the first time the 5-step test has been evaluated, and parents are urged to take note.
You want every journey with your child to be a safe one.
Jackie Quist, 7 News.
Bluey is one of Australia's most successful exports, loved by millions around the world. Now she's inviting them to her backyard, kicking off a major tourism campaign with a world record keepy-uppy attempt.
Ever wished you could live in Bluey's world for real life? Well, that's all of Queensland.
The campaign will run in the US, UK, New Zealand and Singapore. It's expected to draw 1.3 million domestic and international visitors to Queensland. 6 people have been forced to flee from a burning house in Melbourne's west. Details next on 7 News. Also, inside the echo chamber being used to help revolutionise treatment for hearing loss. The Ultramarathon man aiming to run from the Opera House to the G in record time. And in sport with Abbey, the Dockers demolish the Demons in Alice Springs. 2 people have been taken to hospital after a house fire in Melbourne's west. Emergency crews were called to Phoenix Street in Sunshine North around 2:20 this morning. 4 other people were inside the property at the time and safely escaped the flames. No one was seriously injured. Australian researchers have provided 7 News with an inside look at an echoless chamber they're using to develop new adaptable hearing technology. It's hoped the outcomes will help thousands of people living with hearing difficulties.
Deep underground, welcome to the science of sound. A dome surrounded by wedges absorbing reverb and echoes.
There's no other sound coming back from the walls to keep that room sounding like a normal space.
One of the only anechoic chambers in Australia. This speaker array mimics day-to-day environments.
So this might be a typical conversational setting.
To measure the listening brain's response.
Our technologies at the moment and our impaired hearing brains don't deal well with background noise.
New research conducted in this space and at Macquarie University in Sydney has led professors to better understand how the brain processes sound. It's much simpler than first thought, debunking a 75-year-old theory on how humans locate sound sources.
But we have lots of the other architecture, the neurons, the pathways that animals have to do those tasks.
1 in 6 Australians has some form of hearing loss.
Less than half of them have actually sought help and sought hearing devices. Part of the problem is hearing aids today don't perfectly restore sound.
The research from this space has captured the attention of technology companies around the world and is hoped to change the way hearing aids and cochlear implants are developed into the future.
5 years from now, who knows how well people are going to be able to hear in difficult situations thanks to this kind of research.
Angelique Opie, 7 News.
An Australian man will attempt to break a 3-decade-old ultramarathon record, hoping to run from Sydney to Melbourne in just over 5 days. It's more than just a physical challenge, it's also a fundraiser inspired by his own battle with mental health.
For 22-year-old Liam Power, pounding the pavement is how he finds his peace.
Running was always my escape and always made me feel really good mentally.
His escape now shaping up to be the ultimate test of endurance, set to run from the Sydney Opera House to the Melbourne Cricket Ground, all up around 886 kilometres, an ultramarathon record in his sights.
Looking to get under 5 days and 2 hours.
That record set by Yanis Kouros in 1989 in Westfield's then annual Sydney to Melbourne race, but it's another winner inspiring Liam's attempt.
I was really inspired by Cliff Young's story of him at 61 years of age, winning the race.
When Liam sets off from the Opera House, breaking the ultramarathon record isn't his only goal. He's also hoping to raise $1 million for mental health charity Beyond Blue.
Had my own battles growing up with mental health issues and suffering from anxiety and depression. I thought that if I can hopefully inspire some other people who are going through difficult times to turn to health and fitness.
People are often surprised to learn that our support service is entirely funded by donations. So initiatives like Liam is undertaking really help fund our support service.
Amber Laidler, 7 News.
Good luck, Liam. Abbey's back with sport, and Abbey, the Demons were embarrassed in Alice Springs.
Well, Mike, it's left coach Simon Goodman with some unwanted new records. Up next, Fremantle demolished the Demons in the Red Centre, denting their premiership hopes. A contentious decision late leaves the Bombers heartbroken in a thriller on the Gold Coast. Max King heads for more scans as a rising tiger is grounded. And the passionate #1 fan spurring on Alex de Minaur in the French Open. Welcome back. It's been a dirty day for the Demons in Alice Springs, belted by Fremantle to the tune of 92 points. It's Melbourne's biggest ever loss under Simon Goodwin and sees them slide from 6th to 9th on the ladder, losing 12% in the process.
A nightmare of epic proportions in the Red Centre.
A day no one saw coming. A day that could change the course of the season.
We're a proud team, and that performance will certainly hurt us internally.
The Demons decided to sell off one of their home games, a move that's royally backfired.
We embrace coming up here. That's us as a footy club. We know we've done it for 9 years now.
Fremantle went on a 6-goal run early to blow Melbourne out of the park.
And look how excited Jordan Clark is.
They were like a runaway road train, bullying their way over the D's. Clayton Oliver provided some relief.
At last, Melbourne kick a goal.
But there was nothing pretty about the rest of the day. Stephen May was in the wars.
Oh, it's a knee right in the ribs.
The margin 50 points by half-time.
Melbourne are absolutely stunned by this.
And May's day got even worse against Jai Amos, who finished with 4.
63 points the difference. It is an onslaught.
The Dockers did as they pleased.
Sarong! His first goal of the season is something special.
Melbourne smashed 22-10 in centre clearances and were left embarrassed, unable to stick a tackle. Luke Jackson capped off a memorable day against his old side with 3 goals.
He's a Melbourne premiership player, but he's hunting silverware as a Docker now.
Inconsistencies, not only from week to week, are concerning, and we'll look into the why, because that performance is clearly completely unacceptable.
Lockie Hunter subbed out at half-time with a calf injury. Tim Hipsley, 7 News.
Essendon has been left to rue a contentious 50-metre penalty late against the Gold Coast to go down by 11 points. Despite the loss, the Bombers hold on to second spot on the ladder, while the Suns knock out Collingwood in 8th place.
The Sun turned Bomber made an early statement.
Back home to his old home ground for the first time since they dubbed him.
Essendon with the first quarter lead on the Gold Coast.
But he is blossoming before our eyes.
Then the Sun scored 4 in a row to wrestle back control, Ben King kicking 3 for the match.
And this man could be a big difference maker as well.
Inaccuracy cost the Bombers heading into half-time, down by 8 points. Gold Coast shooting for the win and a place in the 8.
Wheels around on the arc and drills it.
Touk Miller could be in hot water for this tackle on Archie Perkins, a blemish in a third quarter on the Suns' terms. The Bombers just couldn't find the posts.
And Martin's the man. Oh, can you believe that?
A wonder goal from Nick Hind steadied the ship. The Suns up by 11 at the final break. A late flurry gave the Bombers a glimmer of hope.
Play on, Cox! Doesn't matter how, it just matters how many.
But the Suns shut the gate, leaving Essendon on the ropes.
Lacocious, laconic, they're out by 2.
Then a free kick and goal to Touk Miller was the nail in the coffin. The Suns still unbeaten at home in 2024.
Well, the team played really well, especially when it come up clutch at the end there, so I'm really happy we got over the line.
Laura Spurway, 7 News.
Richmond's injury woes have reached crisis point with confirmation of the club's 5th ruptured ACL this season. The Tigers were overrun by a young cat whose name has well and truly entered the Rising Star race.
Not even a ruptured ACL could dampen footy fairy tale Machete Lafau's spirits this morning. The rugby convert now the 5th Tiger with a season-ending knee. Adding to the woes, a calf tear for Marlon Pickett. Despite the injury list back to 15, Dustin Martin in line to be rested off the 5-day break into Adelaide Thursday night, leaving his 300th milestone for round 14 against Hawthorn at the G.
We'll probably have 3 or 4 players in that category based on their age and workload. That might be a high risk to play against Adelaide no matter what.
Harley Reid's 2-match ban for a dangerous tackle, ruling him out of the Rising Star on the same weekend as Sam Darcy, leaving Kangaroos George Wardlaw and Colby McKercher, plus St Darcy Wilson, Demon Caleb Windsor and Cat Ollie Dempsey, fresh off 3 goals and 27 touches in a race blown wide open.
I already assumed that he'd be right up there. He's having a great year.
Holmes and teammates taking time to adjust to the new holding the ball rule.
I don't know what I can say without getting a fine. I don't want to be disrespectful, but the rules changed over the three days this week. I'm probably consistent tonight, but it's a bit confusing right now.
A relief with scans clearing Max King of structural damage to his knee, but a low-level sprain has him in doubt to face the Suns Saturday, while luckless bomber Zach Reed injured a pectoral muscle in the VFL. Mitch Cleary, 7 News.
Alex de Minaur has become a serious fan favourite at Roland Garros after becoming the first Aussie to reach the last 16 at the French Open in 17 years. He thanked one young boy who cheered madly throughout a 4-set victory over Jan-Leonard Struff and now wants the boy courtside for his clash with Daniil Medvedev. Thanasi Kokkinakis lost in 5 sets to American Taylor Fritz, while Novak Djokovic clawed his way back in the early hours of the morning, dominating the final 2 sets to beat Lorenzo Musetti in 5. The Matildas won't risk Caitlin Ford's tight hamstring against China tomorrow night in Sydney. The star forward was restricted to walking laps at training this afternoon. Coach Tony Gustafsson says Friday night's draw was a game for selection trials, but tomorrow night's all about going out for victory.
There's a team that want to step out there and show who we truly are and finish off with a very, very good performance on home soil.
The 18-player Olympic squad is announced on Tuesday morning. It's going to be a nervous wait for some Matildas before that announcement.
Yeah.
Only 18 going to Paris.
Oh, it's going to be a nervous wait indeed. Abs, thank you. Sonia Marinelli is here now with the weather details. And Son, we survived our first weekend of winter.
I'm going to say, Mike, just survived. It's been a textbook start to the season and it's just getting started. Your forecast up next. Hello there. Grab your coat, grab your beanie, your thermals and stay rugged up. You are going to need it this week with a complex weather pattern driving a bitterly cold wind and the odd shower into Melbourne over the next 7 days. The far east of the state is set for a drenching tonight. Today we shivered through all the elements of winter. We had grey skies, showers and that icy cold wind. We started even chillier than expected. The city temperature dipped to 5 in the overnight hours. Just 14 was our high. That's our second day where we were spot on average for June. So these are textbook winter conditions. And this is where the chill is coming from. Breezy gusts driving in from the south. And of course that wind chill made it feel even colder around the suburbs than our recorded tops of 13 or 14. Now you might have caught a sprinkle of showers today, but it was very light and mostly over the western suburbs. Now we are seeing most of the shower activity driving into Gippsland at the moment, and that is forecast to turn to gusty rain in the far east tonight, spilling in from a low over the Tasman. Otherwise, it was just as cold as yesterday. We have a chilly night in the city tonight under dry skies, and even though that gusty rain in the east is going hard tonight, it will start to ease tomorrow as that low moves back out over the Tasman. But we do stay in that wintry airstream all week long. So let's get straight into the forecast now. We have a large area of rain spreading in from the west. Adelaide, though, dry for now, but Hobart will get that persistent rain due to the positioning of that low. Here in Victoria, we are bracing for another icy night as the temperature plunges close to 0. There is a frost warning in place for several districts. We stay in the grip of cold southerly winds and they'll continue to push cloud and showers over southern parts, but do expect that gusty rain streaming into East Gippsland to start to ease. The rest of the state dry, partly cloudy and similar to today. so it's going to feel like Groundhog Day. For Melbourne itself, we are shivering again in these cold winds under grey clouds. Monday, mostly dry apart from the odd shower. The chance of morning fog as the temperature plunges again down as low as 4. Just like today, we are heading for around that 14-degree mark. So a grey, wintry Monday ahead for us. We have a top of just 14 in the city, and that is how it's going to feel all of this week as we continue in a southerly airstream. We're looking at tops of around 15 degrees, cold but dry except for a few light showers around, mostly on Wednesday and Thursday. But Mike, something tells me winter is just getting started.
Thermals and beanies, yeah,
Yes.
You're right there. OK, thanks, Son. And that's 7 News for this Sunday. Thanks for joining us from the 7 News team. Have a great night.
7 News. Nobody knows Melbourne better.